you get a show.
Oh, wow. Look at that. That's beautiful. It's all pink, right? Like your sweater.
Yeah.
Very pretty. Pretty.
All right. Okay, so we should be ready. Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the Spiritual Healing Center. We are a non-denominational spiritist center and we respect all religions, all spiritual traditions. So if you are listening from us for the very first time, you are welcome to bring your thoughts, your questions, either now or later. We'll be happy to support you. And before we start our announcements, we always begin our service with a prayer. So I would like to ask our dear sister Sunshine to come up and give our opening prayer. Please make sure that your microphones are muted.
Thank you. Let us all close our eyes and let us take a few deep inhales and exhales so that we can be totally present in this moment, in our physical forms, our bodies, ready to receive the blessings from on high. Let us feel our feet on the ground, saying hello to Mother Earth. And while we continue to take conscious breaths, inhaling and exhaling, let us connect with our hearts, the beautiful heart that connects us to all of our friends in both realms, in all spheres, including the rocks, the flowers, the animals, and all spirits. And now let us say hello to God. Let us say hello to Jesus, our guide and model. Let us say hello to Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene. Let us say hello to the mentors of this group, Dr. Bezea, Dr. Paulo, Sister Sheila, Dr. Filomeno de Miranda, and all the other beautiful mentors and healing doctors that are surrounding us, not only now, but always, ready to guide us, ready to hold our hands, to soothe us, to love us. Thank you for this moment, dear God, where we are able to meet heart to heart, mind to mind. We pray that we will be staying present during the talk that our brother Mark will present to us. We pray that he will be continuously connected lovingly with his mentors, and that we are a fertile ground to receive the seeds that will be planted today. Let us focus on our two wings and let us boost them, the wing of love and the wing of wisdom. And these two will take us closer to God, closer to love. Thank you. Thank you for this moment. And we humbly ask for permission to begin today's meeting. And so be it. And so it is. Thank you.
Thank you for the beautiful prayer, sister. Okay, so as I was saying, BSH is a member of the United States Spiritist Federation, and our spiritual beliefs are based around scientific, philosophical, and religious principles of Spiritism. Mommy doesn't need that, thank you. As Emmanuel, the spirit mentor of Chico Xavier, taught us, knowledge and love are the wings for the spiritual evolution. And that's the reason why this service is divided into two parts. First, we always have someone speaking and sharing finds from remarkable and qualified mediums and spirits. It is really important that you participate, since your mentor is already supporting you and your needs while you are hearing from the speakers. We highly encourage you to take some notes so then you can reflect along the week. Carrying and working these reflections will really sustain the energy that you will receive in this while you're here in the center. And then in the second part, we have a hands-on healing pass where your mentor will be working with the PSH mediums and the benefactors of the good for you to receive the healing energy that you are in need. Now, we know that this is a journey, so allow me to share with you all the opportunities that we have for us to be together along this process. So here in our website, pshcenter.org, you can come to this part here, meetings and events, and you should be able to find all the opportunities that is, as I said, for us to be together. So we have here, down here, you will have the link for you to join us. It's the same link for all the services, all the gatherings. So on Sunday we have this online educational meeting followed by passes. We always have daily prayers. So everybody's welcome to join us, 6 p.m. Pacific time. Typically takes 15-20 minutes for you to pray for yourself or for those who are in need. We also have fraternal counseling. This one is by appointment only. Usually we do that on Wednesdays from 4 to 7, but if you need anyone to be with you, to pray with you, for you to vent, for you to chat, whatever, we are here for you and with you. You just let us know and we'll be able to assign someone to talk to you. Be happy to assign someone to talk to you. And then we have all the book studies. So all the book studies begin 6:30. It takes usually 1 hour, a little bit more, a little bit less, depending on the chapter. And then just by the end of July, we started Missionaries of the Light on Sunday, which is a beautiful book by André Luiz via Chico Xavier. On Tuesdays, we are reading the book The Consoler, which is also, we started a couple of months ago. This is by Emmanuel, the Spirit Emmanuel through Chico Xavier, and this one is in collaboration with the Divine Light Spiritist group, who is led by our sister Sunshine. On Wednesdays, we are reading the book Heaven and Hell by Allan Kardec, and on Thursdays, we are reading the book Living Spring, also by Emmanuel via Chico Xavier. And if you did not start with us, you're more than welcome to join anytime. It will be easy for you to catch up. Usually those books, they have singular chapter and you'll be able to catch up to what is being written. Now we do have mediumship services, and this one is closed, but if you are interested in learning a little bit more, the educational part of the mediumship principles happens at the first hour, so it's usually 6:30. And then the second part, it's a healing process, and this one is only closed for the workers of BSH, which means if you or anyone who is in need of treatment, please let us know. We will add this person's name to our book, to the treatment book. And then during this treatment, that usually takes 4 weeks, we ask for the person to stay tuned, to meditate, to read the gospel during this time, so then you can be open to receive the healing energy that will be given to you. So these are all the opportunities that we have for us to be together. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce us to our guest speakers today, who is our dear brother, Mark Carlos. And he will be speaking about a chapter of the Spirit's book, Divine or Natural Law, God, Good and Evil. And he will be speaking about a couple of questions within this chapter. And then next week, we will continue the study of the same chapter with our brother Charles. So for those who still don't know Mark, he is an American born and bred, having now lived in multiple states and has experienced Spiritism since 2018 in multiple countries as well. Raised Catholic, Mark left the church at 16 and was dormant spiritually for almost 30 years. When he became a father, he discovered a power greater than himself, and life has not been the same since. A lifetime musician and technologist, Mark is now retired, focused on his spiritual development, and has learned enough to realize he's exactly where he's meant to be. He's still learning how to fly with both wings, knowledge, and charity. And we are extremely happy to have you here today with us, brother. So please take it away. Thank you.
Thank you, Kiki. I will share my screen. Maybe. Let me find my screen. Oh, heavens, where did it go? There we go. Apologize for that. Well, let me tell you a little bit about a background that led up to today. Charles and I were scheduled to do this entire chapter over 2 consecutive weeks. And originally, Charles had the first 2 chapters and I had the next 2, or the next 2 sections. But schedules got in the way and now we flipped. Well, the good news is, having read through all the questions in this chapter, the sequence is not that important. So don't be concerned that the first 2 have already or will be done next week. And what I'm doing today are the last 2 sections of this chapter. But as Kiki said in the introduction, the entire chapter is about good versus evil. And if you like, throughout this presentation, as I have done this presentation, I simply exchanged the words good and evil to be right versus wrong. And in my head, rather than just reading the questions and the answers as Kardec authored them, and the spirits authored them, again, in my head, I'm equating to right versus wrong, and how much broader and blurred the definition is as a result. Good versus evil is, kind of easy to understand. One is at one extreme, one is at the other. And everything in the middle is, subject to us. And that's why I took this approach of right versus wrong. So let's start. So let's start with the definition, because the spirits communicated the essence of good and evil coming down to our own morality barometer or thermometer. So morality is the rule of good conduct. In other words, the ability to distinguish between good and evil. It's found.
Sorry to interrupt you, brother. I don't know if you are willing to share your screen. If you are, you are not.
Thank you.
Sure.
One sec. Oh, what happened?
There we are. We can see it.
Now you
It's
see.
not. Yeah,
Okay.
it's not on presentation mode though.
I thought I was doing that. All right. So
Yeah.
What definition may be given to morality? The rule of good conduct. It's the ability for us as humans to distinguish between good and evil. 100% of the time. No matter what is going on in our life, we have this consciousness when we are awake to distinguish good versus evil. And it's found in the observance of God's law. God's law. What a broad topic that is. But the truth is, humans behave correctly when they do everything for the good of all, for then they are obeying God's law. So it's not just doing good for us, it's doing good for all. But certainly by doing good for us personally has a ripple effect, a domino effect, a continuation of the intention of being good for all. And again, in your own minds, when you see good and evil, you can always associate the words right versus wrong. So how do we distinguish this right versus wrong, good versus evil? Often depicted as black versus white or dark versus light. And so we always talk about coming into the light, divine light, leading towards the good, leading towards the correct. So good, second here, I need to clear my screen. Okay, good is everything that is harmony with God's law. And therefore, evil is the opposite end of the spectrum. It's everything that deviates from God's law. So when we do good, we conform to God's law. But if we don't do good, if we do the wrong thing, then we are infringing on God's law. Now I'm going to stop right here and I'm going to tell you much of the purpose in this association of the words right versus wrong is because of my personal experiences. And in particular, when I became a father, it wasn't too long as the boys started growing, that my wife, their mother, and I got a very serious discussion about what are our goals for our boys down the road. And I came up with one. And I started teaching this to my boys at the earliest possible ages and continuously. I said, guys, by the time you graduate from high school, by the time you're 18 years old, you have to know the difference between right and wrong, which really means that every day you do something, you have the ability up here and in here to know, gee, this is okay, or this is not okay. And that doesn't mean you're going to not do something that's not okay, but you're going to know it's not okay. You cannot go through life without that consciousness. If you choose to do wrong, then you know there could be repercussions. And you know it. It's your choice. That's free will. At any rate, I can tell you this. By the time my kids graduated from high school, they knew the difference between right and wrong. They understand the concept of good versus evil. And as a result, they are good adults. Do humans have the means within them to distinguish? And of course they do. We all do. When we believe in a higher power, and we call them in Spiritism God, when we believe in God and know, we want to know the difference between good and evil. God has given us that intelligence to discern one from the other. And so the next question, since humans are prone to error, couldn't there be mistakes that they'll make in discerning in any situation, good versus evil, right versus wrong, such that they believe that they are doing good or doing okay, when in reality, they are doing what is evil? Is that really something we have the ability to understand? Well, we know from the biblical verse and from the spirits, Jesus said, do unto others. In fact, Jesus wasn't the only one. The golden rule is found in multiple belief systems throughout the globe, throughout history, preceding and following the life of Jesus. But with this one mandate, we can never go wrong. If we always ask ourselves, if I say this, if I do this, will it impact somebody else? Is that what I would want somebody to say to me or do to me? Because if the answer isn't yes, you don't say anything and you don't do anything. Or you certainly don't do what you were contemplating. So, the rule of good and evil can be called reciprocity or solidarity. It does not apply to our own conduct regarding us. This one's a little deep. Can we find a rule and a safe guide for such conduct? Okay, now let's just stop for a second before we see the answer and think about that word reciprocity. Reciprocity means if you do for me, then I do same for you. If you give me money, I give you that same amount of money back, sometimes more. If you give me difficulty, now we get into spiritual principles, Spiritist principles, Jesus principles. Once upon a time, humanity was not evolved to the point where it is today and didn't even have the ability to control their instantaneous reactions. You hit me with a rock, I'm finding a rock to hit you back. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth mindset. And as humanity formed families and groups, then that word solidarity comes into play. If you hurt one of my family members, any one of my family members can come back after you. Has much changed to today? Are we still seeking a guide and a rule for such conduct? Well, think about this. If you eat too much, it will harm you. That's God letting you know how much you really need and what happens when you exceed it. Now, the text uses the word punished. And more modern, we think about impact or pain and suffering, but not necessarily a God that is a punishing God. In fact, many times God defers that punishment to we humans in the societies that we live in. But this principle of eating too much can harm you. That same thing applies to everything else. God's natural law outlines human and limits. When we exceed that limit, we experience pain and suffering. If we would listen to the internal voice, our mentors, our spirits who protect us, who guide us, if we have the ability to listen, sooner or later, as we're doing or saying something, that word enough comes into mind. All of a sudden, we consciously are aware that we've been talking for a while, we've been acting out for a while, that's enough. And if we are conscious and capable of throttling ourselves, putting the brakes on, silencing our mouths and voices, calming our emotions, then we could avoid many of the ills we are accused of inflicting. And of course, there are personal examples of this in all of our lives. But this is the concept of the rule and the safe guide. It's what's inside us. It's our own ability to have consciousness of what we're saying and what we're doing. And before somebody else puts their hand up and says stop, we have the ability to do that ourselves. So let's not become gluttonous trying to achieve whatever it is we want to achieve. So why is evil found in the very nature of things? Moral evil. Couldn't God have created humankind under better moral conditions? Okay, wait a minute. Moral conditions. God created our ability to create moral conditions, positive or negative, good or bad, good or evil, right or wrong, etc. That's up to us. But couldn't God have created it better? Well, as they've already told us, our spirits are created simple and ignorant. We come out of the womb completely unaware of prior lives or any knowledge. And God leaves us to choose our own path. And of course, we have parents and families and friends, and as we get older, professional mentors, etc. But it's up to us. We choose our own path. That is the essence of free will. And if we choose to take an evil path, then our journey gets longer and more arduous. But the truth is, if there weren't any mountains, we wouldn't understand our ability to go up and down them. If there weren't any rocks, we would not understand that there are hard objects as well as soft mud, soft dirt. And if we fall on those rocks, we know it can hurt and there will be pain and suffering. But again, this is our free will to take that path. So we acquire experiences as we journey. And we start making adjustments based on our consciousness and free will to choose a different path. Because we're starting to realize the essence of good and evil, and the essence of evil leading us to pain and suffering. There are references to other questions in the Spirit's book. I did not bring those up, nor do I want to refer to them because this is a lengthy presentation. But I do want you to know that if you go back and look at this again, pull your Spirit's book out and see what number 115 and 119 have to do with this topic of moral evil. 635, the different social positions created over time through societies, they create needs that are not the same for everyone. Is this natural law? Therefore, not a uniform rule for everyone? That's interesting. The evolution of humanity, the evolution of societies and cultures and countries, they're not the same for everyone. Is there one uniform rule? Well, we know that different positions exist in nature itself. And these are there because of the law of progress. But it does not invalidate the unity of natural law, which applies to everything. Okay, we're getting pretty broad and pretty deep and unspecific with this. How does this apply to us? So think about this. The conditions of our existence changes according to time and place, as we age, as we move, as we meet different people, as we grow mentally, emotionally, spiritually. We have different needs, and we take on different social positions corresponding to those needs. And professionally, this one's easy. As you age and you jump from your 20s to your 30s, now you're starting to think seriously about independent living and how you want to live a lifestyle going forward. More often than not, that means the job that you are in doesn't pay enough. And in order to achieve what you think you want to achieve in the material sense, you need to make more money. So this is that the difference needs and social positions corresponding to our existence. This diversity across all humans, that's by design. That is by nature. That is in conformance to God's law. We are not meant to be the same. We are not meant to have the same standard. We are not uniform. We are individual. So our individual needs, our individual wants lead to this concept of following God's law. But there is no one God's law that everybody follows. There are variations. And that's what these questions and all the questions in the Spirit book lead us to realize. So we get down to this. Is good and evil an absolute for everyone? Does everybody understand the extremes and everything in between of good and evil? Well, the law is the same for everyone. But the concept of evil depends on the willingness one has for doing it. And we're going to go off in this kind of focus effort, those who are involved in evil. Good is always good, and evil is always evil, no matter what the person's position may be, whether they're following somebody else's decision and executing evil, or whether they are the person who creates the evil environment and convinces others to fall behind. So the difference of evil is in the degree of responsibility. So let's talk about humans in a variety of different ways. And we'll go to an extreme and we'll talk about cannibals. And yes, there are still cannibals today in parts of the world. These people are born into a culture, a family unit, completely removed from the rest of society, and their instincts from a young age do not include a concept of awareness, consciousness of the wrongness when eating human flesh. To them, it's part of their existence. It's their daily existence. If they can't find food from another animal, they don't think twice about eating human flesh. And so evil depends on the will. If the person becomes intelligent enough to know that that's not right for whatever reasons, how they came to that conclusion is not important. But then they are guiltier because they know they're doing something they shouldn't do. Same lessons I wanted my children to have by the time they became adults. So these cannibals, and at the other end of the extreme, my children, they're given circumstances to learn good versus evil and the seriousness of knowing the extremes. People frequently commit the wrongs that are nonetheless, which are nonetheless totally reprehensible, unconsciously impossible to comprehend sometimes. But here's a key point. Even if the result from the social position in which society placed them kind of allows for that to happen. However, the responsibility depends on the means at their disposal for comprehending good and evil. So an enlightened person who commits a simple injustice is even guiltier in God's eyes than a primitive who obeys his or her natural instincts. This is an important thing to understand with what's going on in the world right now, not just in this country, but in multiple countries. The leaders of those countries convince themselves, convince their supporters, try to convince the people they are overseeing that what they're doing is the right thing to do. And from the outside looking in, how can you come to that conclusion? We ask ourselves this virtually every day. How can we come to the conclusion that what's going on in the Middle East right now is the right thing to be doing in all locations? Or what's going on in the Ukraine? Or what's going on in the United States? It's incredulous for many of us to figure out, how could somebody think this is the right thing to do? So it seems evil results from a necessity. The necessity in certain cases to destroy, even murder. So has there been a transgression or a change of God's law over time? Nope. Evil is still evil. Nothing has changed. But the necessity itself disappears when the soul starts purifying itself through multiple incarnations. Remember, we all progress. We don't go backwards. So eventually, those of us who have had an evil past, we expire from the current body, a period of time goes by, education takes place, and then reincarnation happens. Now, that doesn't mean the person disappears and becomes angelic. It might take multiple, and often does take multiple reincarnations to progress beyond the point of evil and shift to good. Because over time, we have a much better understanding of it. And I dare say that our paraspirit has a limit of how much pain and suffering it will endure before the rest of us gets in line. So let's talk about leadership roles. The evil we commit frequently results from the position in which others have placed us. So in such a case, who is more capable? Before I give you the answer, just take a look at these four. History shows that they are, the cruelest rulers in history, quote unquote. And whether there's a bigger list or more famous people, that is not the point. The concept is each of them oversaw a nation, millions of people, soldiers. If soldiers are just following orders, who's more evil? The person who gave the order or the person who executes the order? So the spirits believe, and God has told them, responsibility for evil falls upon the one who has caused it. Thus, those who are led into evil by the position in which others have placed them are less culpable than those who have made them commit it. Soldiers are just following orders. But all will suffer the penalty, not only for the evil they have done, but for the evil they have caused. Now, I would surmise that in the afterlife, each of us goes through a process, and if in fact we were a soldier who was simply following orders, our education in the afterlife will not be as long in duration, will not be as severe as those who were in positions of leadership. Again, this is all in the afterlife. What happens in the current life is human driven. So if in fact you take any one of these four or any others and think about what happened when their reign of terror ended. Was it a human or multiple humans who ended it? Did they take their own life because they didn't want to face any of the real pain and suffering that was coming? A lot of interesting questions, but the point here is that evil is evil, and all who participate in it will pay the price eventually. And so we continue this theme with the next question: are those who do not do the evil themselves but take advantage of the evil committed by others culpable to the same degree? So, history is full of examples. I think about the artwork that was stolen during World War II and those who took advantage of it on a personal level and possibly even still hold some of those incredibly valuable pieces of art and choose to sell them and make money and live happily ever after, quote unquote. I don't think so. It is if they themselves had committed it. Upon taking advantage of it, they participate in it. Perhaps they would have recoiled before the deed itself if they had known. But once it was done and they knew it and they took advantage of it, it's like they approved of it. And they would have done it themselves if they could have, or if they had been more daring. They're absolutely just as guilty. So evil does not end when the individual committing it transpires. Is the desire for evil as reprehensible as evil itself? Well, let's talk about the source of evil first. Source of evil: desire, greed, anger. We see this publicly at news conferences, at press briefings. Sometimes the entire one direction from the leadership is telling you clearly their desire. It could be greed of a personal nature, it could be greed of a country nature, and oftentimes an anger point, that what preceded this moment makes them angry for whatever reason. Now, certainly ego and pride is all intertwined in all of this. Spirits tell us it depends. There is a virtue, a good virtue, in willingly resisting the desire for evil if one truly desires to commit it. Especially when the opportunities present themselves of satisfying the desire. However, it is only because of the opportunity did not present themselves, but the person is still thinking, gee, they would love to do that. They are culpable. It is as though they did the evil act themselves. Now, I can give you a couple different examples, but probably the most prevalent example in society, in this country, if not around the world, is the distinguishing characteristics between men and women. So, the phrase from decades ago was, an attractive woman is walking down the street. It does not matter how she's dressed, her makeup, her hair, or anything. If a male sees her, he is thinking about, what would it be like to be with this woman? And that thought oftentimes becomes desire and greed. And again, I can tell you as a male, guilty. Guilty. I learned it from a very young age. Certainly as a young adult male, even a married young adult male, my society was full of immorality, promiscuity, facing me every day on the billboards as I commuted to work. And so, again, it's the thought. It's the thought. The thought is very real, and it's wrong. I'm not better. I'm not in control. I don't have the right. There's no respect if I approach that woman and say or do anything. Resisting that desire is huge. Understanding the wrongness of acting upon it is huge. On the other hand, eliminating the thought is truly the goal. Truly the goal. 642, in order to be pleasing to God and to ensure our future situation, which means the path we will be taking in this life and in future lives, is it enough simply not to do what is evil? No. We not only must do the good based on our own abilities, but we will all answer for the evil that has resulted from the good we didn't do or didn't complete. It could be just plain ignorance that we didn't realize the opportunity. But if the opportunity to do good was there and we didn't, so here's this wonderful piece of art that I have found. Amplify the good. Be consciously looking for the opportunities to do good. Are there persons who have no possibility of doing good because of their position? Nope. Anyone can do good. There are none who cannot. Only selfish persons choose not to find an opportunity for doing good. It is enough to come into contact with others in order to do good, and everyday life offers so many possibilities for people who are not blinded by selfishness. Doing the good does not mean only being charitable. But that is certainly a part of it. But also being as useful as possible whenever your help is needed. This is a critical principle. Critical principle. And I'll use Kiki and Regina and Tanya could speak to this as well. I come into the world that is Bizarro spiritual healing years ago, and now have realized so much more I could be doing. I have this technology background. I have leadership background. I have public speaking background. But I'm not yet to the point where I can educate others because I have much education myself. So I'm very careful on this. But when it comes to technology, I've been doing this, my whole adult life. So those who have the technology responsibilities, don't ever hesitate to pick on me. Pick my brain, pick my time, because I have the time. That's what I mean. That's what this question speaks to me about. Because there are so many opportunities to contribute, not just for BSH, but for others in the Spiritist world, and not just the Spiritist world. So aren't the surroundings in which we live the main reason for many of us to be involved in vice and crime? So I found this poster, and it's pretty darn representative of what everybody thinks of when they think of vice and the crimes associated with vice. So as you study this, you think about your own life. You think about the unlikelihood that at any point in your future would you ever pursue or be involved in any of this. but you may know others that are. So we get back to the question, aren't the surroundings the main reason for people to be involved? Yes. But even then, it is the result of a trial chosen by their spirit in the state of freedom, and I do mean freedom of choice. That mindset, that state of freedom, that consciousness exposes itself to temptation all the time. We cannot exist in this country without those temptations being in our face every day. But we have the ability to resist those temptations. Not everyone does. Some people are born into situations where these vice crimes, this is how they put food in their belly. They're just trying to exist. A little bit of compassion, but on the other hand, recognize freedom of choice. Regina could tell stories, and I'm sure many of us could, of coming into contact with people who are down and out, people who are homeless. They don't necessarily participate in any of this. They're just trying to exist and lead a good life. There are a lot of people like that. My compassion for those people have nothing to do with vice or being homeless. It has to do with the fact that they're in a situation that they don't want to be in. They want to climb out of that hole. What can we do to help them? But if individuals are immersed in an atmosphere of vice, doesn't evil become an almost irresistible draw? Yeah, the answer here, yes. Irresistible? No, because we do have free will. We do have the power of consciousness. We do have a divine barometer that knows the difference between good and evil. So it matters not what vice you are involved in or exposed to. Resisting is a great virtue, and oftentimes motivational for others to also resist. There are spirits who have the strength to resist, and at the same time, they can influence other beings to also resist. This goes on every single day. Does the merit of the good that one does depend on certain conditions? That is, are there different degrees of merit for doing good? And I'll explain this wonderful piece of art with the answer. The merit lies in its difficulty. There is no merit in doing good if there is no self-denial and if it costs nothing. And we're not talking about dollars and cents here. We're talking about giving a piece of ourselves. God takes more notice of poor individuals who share their only piece of bread than of the rich who give only what is superfluous to them. Jesus told us this in the parable of the widow's mite. So here's a woman with 2 children and living day to day, trying to feed her children and herself, raise her children properly. And what does she do? She comes to the temple and she gives all that she has. Powerful message. Is the entire law of God contained in Jesus's maxims of loving one's neighbor? Beyond the golden rule. Is the entire law of God contained in that? Well, certainly, the loving one's neighbor maxim certainly reaffirms that all of humankind has a duty towards each other. But it's necessary for us to learn this in real life by doing and by not doing and realizing the impact of not doing. So when we neglect these opportunities or these duties, we're bucking up against this very maxim. Natural law covers all of the circumstances. This maxim refers to only one of the aspects. People need to learn God's intentions or the precise rules. Overly vague concepts, precepts, leave too many doors to interpretation. You know, we have so many flavors of the Christian religion now, following multiple Bibles. What is the truth? But the truth is within us. Make no mistake about it. You ask 25 people of all ages to sit down and write their definition of good versus evil. Those definitions are going to be so close to each other, and yet every one of those writings will be distinctively unique to the experience that human has done. What it means to them, not what they've been taught, not what their parents instilled in them. It's what it means to them based on experiences. Then if you ask them the questions, what was the last time you had an opportunity to do good and didn't do it? They can all answer it. Okay, there's education taking place. 648, what do you think of dividing natural law into 10 parts? The 10 Commandments. Covering the laws of worship, labor, reproduction, preservation, destruction, society, progress, equality, liberty, and the law of justice, love, and charity. What do the spirits think about natural law being divided into 10 parts? Well, this comes from Moses and covers all the circumstances of life, which means this is essential stuff, these 10 statements. But remember, they were written at that time. If those types of divine communications were to take place themselves, those 10 commandments might be worded differently or might still hold the same value. Interesting to think about what God would communicate if he had the chance to do it again today. So we can follow that 10-part discipline like any other classification system. But we must recognize there's nothing absolute in those 10 statements. It is still subject to interpretation. It's still subject for bouncing any one of those and what it means to you against this internal barometer of good versus evil. Because they always depend on our own point of view from experiences. And remember the last law. It's the most important because it sums up all the others. And I'm not going to tell you what it is. You're going to have to look up the 10th commandment. These are pieces of art that I started pulling to make this presentation a little bit more meaningful. And I chose to save these, especially the one in the bottom right. What I've learned in Spiritism about the afterlife, about the potential for evil people to be in what is called the Umbra. This is what it might conceptually look like. But before that happens, to the left of that image in the lower left, could be representative of that moment of transformation where the most important people in our lives who have passed on before us now appear and guide us as we review our life, our current life, for all the good and evil, for all the opportunities not taken and taken. In the middle up top is this young girl dreaming. Pretty pleasant, fantastical thoughts. But those are pretty good thoughts. That would appear to me to be a healthy girl, normally dreaming with positivity. As that girl gets older, perhaps this is what her dreams look like in the top right. Far more spiritual in nature. Far more conscious of right versus wrong, good and evil. And of course, on the left, top, is the vision we all hope to see one day. The light. The light we are walking towards. Because of our morality. Because of our free will to pursue the good and to leave behind the evil. And to take every opportunity to exercise the good and lead others on a similar path. Thank you, Allan Kardec. Thank you, spirits.
Thank you, Mark. That was really beautiful and thought-provoking in so many different ways.
And I'm on time.
You know, brother, while we were saying, I was drawing, as always taking my notes, and I draw a system that I'm going to share with you all later. But the way that I interpreted what you were saying, and I'll be brief, just sharing with you all, is good and evil helped me to interpret as ignorance versus knowledge. And this ignorance responds more to our instincts, whether knowledge responds more to our decisions, right? As you were saying, as we learn, as we decide what we want to do, and based off that, when we act with our instincts, the pain and suffering will be the guardrails for us to learn that something's going wrong, that something needs to change. So that's the pain and suffering. But in the other hand, when we decide to do something instead of pain and suffering, even if we, whatever happens to us, whatever is the outcome, there will be peace of mind. We won't be hammering on that, whatever happened, over and over. That peace of mind will be a reinforcement to us. So evil and good, evil being related to ignorance, good being related to knowledge, ignorance being related to instinct, knowledge being related to decision. Instinct being related to pain and suffering as guardrails, decision being related to peace of mind for reinforcement. Instinct being driven by reaction, decision being driven by balance. Reaction being a natural part of ours, balance being an acquisition based off of the evolution of our understanding. And that all comes together with this final piece that you just said, that everything is summarized with justice, love, and charity. So if we practice that, that will be the base for everything that happens above that. And that reminds me of what we learned about benevolence towards all and everyone, forgiveness of all offenses, and indulgence towards others' defects. Thank you. That was really inspiring.
Thank you. And when you put that, what you just said to print, please send it.
I will. I will.
That was beautiful.
Thank you, brother. Does anyone have any questions or comments to Mark? Very complete.
Well, hey, Mark, thank you for the presentation, because now I have some work to be done. My goodness. So stop with you is a chore. But anyways, I appreciate the presentation, your perspective on how you see things. I think that's your major contribution today. Because of course, there's a natural tendency in see things in this dichotomy, black and white, evil versus not evil, good versus black and white, the weak and the strong, and so on. I come from a perspective where I see more like so there's evil and ignorance, or good and evil, are two faces of the same coin or the same nature that tends to guide us in this line of defining ourselves. So when you come to that, I think more times in synchrony and alignment. So if I am in alignment with the divine principles, with the divine spirit, I am in a good situation in terms of, okay, I am realizing and I'm distancing myself from non-alignment, from not knowing what's right and what's wrong. But when I am in alignment with the divine, I am at peace. I am in the right path. I think that's one aspect that we are to consider when you think about divine law and natural law. Because our world, our society is based on two basic principles of competition and cooperation. So when you are in competition, we go to all these directions of fighting against the other, competing, and destroying the other because my position is right. So that's the principle of competition. And in reality, I believe that it is important for us to consider that we are to cooperate, help each other, get in alignment with the divine. And I think that's the intent of the knowledge of the gospel, the message of Jesus, is for us to be in alignment with the divine. When he comes to the point in saying that I am in God, God is in me, that represents this perfect alignment, even though including evil, because I know that I can be evil if I choose to. However, through my experiences of many, many lives, I have come to a conclusion that I don't need to kill anybody. And I don't want to kill anybody, even though I'm capable to. But I am aware, and I'm away from that concept that I have to kill somebody. Like you brought the situation, for example, in the world today. Everywhere, we are facing with this incredible challenge. What's going on in the Middle East? What's going on in our country? What's going on everywhere? It's exactly it's exactly that. Competition is prevailing, and that's what we need to figure out, how not to be competitive, in a sense that we are to allow everybody to be. Well, of course, I'm not perfect. I'm way from that, and I just need to keep studying, keep working, because I have many other experiences in life for me to come back here and learn how to avoid my temptations. So in the God's and the Lord's prayer, freed us from the temptations, exactly that point. Because my tendency is to go back to the old, to the principle, to the primitive, and I'm evolving. So I want to be away from my temptations to go back to it. Well, I have so much to be done for next week. So, but anyway, I appreciate your contribution, because it make me refresh my mind. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Charles.
Well, I think that good and evil is always in the forefront, like you were saying, Mark, in many ways, because there's, especially if you look at a movie, it's always good versus bad. The evil guy, revenge. It's always there to make you think about it, regardless to how you are in your heart. It's always put in your face. This is how it's set up in cartoons, you name it. It's always revenge, the good guy versus the bad guy, on and on.
That's cultural. Yes, that's cultural.
Yeah, and I think it's horrible in some senses because I just would like to watch a decent movie without it being revenge or hate based. I mean, because it's more to us than that. But anyway, it is what it is. But one of the points you made was it's our decision. And I always tell the girls, God gave us free will. It's your choice to go right or left. He didn't choose that for you, you chose it. So be aware. It's always comes back to what we do. So that's my case in point anyway. All right, thanks. Appreciate you.
I have one more thought. Spiritism cautions us, especially with a lot of the more recent publications, cautions us about the traps of judgment. In other words, being overly judgmental as you comment to what's going on in the world, what's going on in your own city, whatever the case may be. God gave us the ability not only for free will, but to choose our own path. You can't choose a path without a factor of judgment. There's a judgment that says, gee, this path looks like it's going in the right direction that I want to go. The road looks smooth enough. This one over here is hilly and rocky. I'm going to take this path. Well, there's a judgment that just took place. If you choose to follow another or a group, there's a judgment that takes place. Don't beat ourselves up for judging. That's natural in today's societies and cultures, etc. But fall back to your own barometer of good versus evil, right versus wrong, left versus right.
Thanks,
Great.
I just wanted to, I appreciate the way you always bring things back into your own life. And I think that's right on. I mean, we're not studying this for stuff for nothing, right? So and it's really good to, I like how you started out with kind of the duality, good and bad, good and evil. But I feel like it came to that conscience, by the end of it, that we have to move beyond duality and do it for the good of, because it's good, not because we're going to be punished, not because we're bad, because it's the right thing to do. So thank you very much. I appreciate your sharing.
Thank you, Teresa.
The one last thought that I wanted to share that came into my mind is if we have a strong instinct that is holding us back from doing what we think is good, bend the knee, literally, bend the knee in the ground and pray. Ask for God for strength. Ask for God for the courage, and we will be given what we are asking for. So we are able to do that, as you said. Thank you so much, brother. All right, everyone. So let's take a 2 minutes break, 1 minute break. And we'll be back for the second part for the hands-on healing. Please don't forget your bottle of water, and please write down the names of those who are in need so we can bring them to the service. Thank you.